Why is it necessary to master the first 30 seconds of a sales call? To explain to you why these 30 seconds are so crucial, first I want to distinguish the difference between new business and business that you already have. It's really about meeting new people, meeting new customers, where the first 30 seconds really determine the outcome of your success. So we have a little bit of an expression in our own company where we say, if you have a deal with a but, I will explain to you, it's not real new business. And what do we mean with a deal with a but? It means that you already had a connection, perhaps it's already an existing customer. In other words, there was always a but behind it. And we are talking right now about the first 30 seconds if you get a deal from scratch. Because these first 30 seconds really determine the outcome. One of the reasons why it's so complicated to do new business and why people always have a little bit of a discussion internally about it, it's that you get rejected. And rejection is something we really don't like. But there are a couple of things that I have to say about rejection. Yes, it is true, it hurts. It hurts if you get rejected in a love affair, of course. And it also feels like pain if you get rejected from a customer. But it's part of life. The biggest thing, the difference is that it feels like physical pain, but because it's not a physical pain, we are able to repeat it constantly. That is something we should stop doing. So it helps if you say to yourself, does it really hurt? Or is it something that it's in my mind that it hurts? One thing you probably don't know about rejection is that it temporarily lowers your IQ. It doesn't mean that you become stupid, but in the field of decision making and your short-term memory, it lowers a little bit. You can't help it, but that's probably one of the reasons why you really don't like rejection. But rejection is never personal. It's just part of being in sales. You need to do your cold calls, you need to do your acquisitions. And if you don't like rejection, it becomes very hard to become successful. Now, how do you deal with it? It's simple. Never ever take it personal and just don't care about rejection. It's just part of it. I've got 6 tips for you. The first one, flirting and seducing. The process on the phone, getting the appointment, is basically the same as flirting and seducing. The better you do, the easier you will get your calls. And remember, the process is exactly the same because we spoke about rejection just a minute ago. And it feels the same if you get rejected, if you're talking to somebody that you would like to have a nice chat to, or when you get rejected on the phone. The second tip, selling sequence. We already spoke about it in a previous video, so make sure you watch that video as well. So if you're on the phone and you want to set up a call, make sure that you sell yourself first. How do you do that? Ask some questions. Try to really listen to what the customer is saying to you before you come up with your story and your pitch. If you want to talk about your company, it's allowed, but try to stay away from it. And definitely do not talk about products and services on the phone when trying to get a meeting. People don't buy products, they buy solutions. You can only get to the solutions if you really understand your customer. And that's the reason why you set up the call. Third tip I have for you. If you pick up the phone, if the phone is ringing, most people say their company name and then their own name. But if they do outbound calling, they reverse it. They say their first name and they end with the company name. I should have done some study about it, where it's coming from, but in 80% of the cases when we do training, it's like that. My advice to you is inbound, outbound, it's the same. You start with your company name and you finish with your own name. Why is that? As I mentioned, we spoke about the selling sequence. You want people to remember your name, not your company name. Just imagine, what's the only thing that differentiates you from your competitors? It's you. That's what makes you really special. So use that. Inbound, outbound, it's the same. Company name, your name, and then you start your call. The fourth tip I have for you, it's the tone of voice. And if you speak very slow in the very same pace, it becomes very boring. And I know it's not easy to practice it. If you have children, if you have nephews, pick up a book and start reading to them. It helps you to work on your tone of voice. Because if you speed it up a little bit, you make it a little bit higher or you make it a little bit lower, you can play with it and it increases the impact you have on the other person on the other side of the line. Practice it. Tone of voice helps you a lot to set up good goals. The fifth tip I have for you, a little bit more complicated, but short. It's the belief that you have in a positive outcome. Because what I see sometimes happening is that people pick up the phone and they say, "You don't want to have a meeting with me either, is it?" If that's your belief, you're probably right. So if you think yes or no, both cases, you are right. So make sure you picture already in your mind that you will get the call, that you will get the meeting, how it feels if you have the meeting. It sounds strange, but your belief determines whether you get the meeting, yes or no. By the way, talking about beliefs and how important it is to become successful, on Udemy, I've got a course. It's all about your belief system and setting goals. It's a great investment for yourself to improve yourself dramatically. Last but not least, the value promise. So let's combine it a little bit. We talked about inbound and outbound. So you pick up the phone, somebody picks up the phone on the other side. You say your company name, your name, you ask for permission to speak or to ask some questions, and the other person says, yes, go ahead. From that moment on, you have to come up with a value statement. A value statement is like a pitch. It's a little bit of storytelling with a very positive outcome. It's not about talking about specifications, technical requirements, etc. It's something where you say, if you sell chairs, where you say, okay, Mr. Customer, we have a beautiful, beautiful way of sitting down and relaxing. That's the reason I want to have this call with you. In other words, you're not talking about the chair itself. You talk already about how the customer is going to use it and what's the value for him or her, or what the benefits could be. It should be something that you really believe. It's also something that you should prepare before you start doing your calls. It's also important that you have a look at your target audience, because sometimes you have to talk about profits, sometimes you have to talk about that it's very easy to use. So it depends a little bit who you're going to make a call to. But there should always be a promise in it, a promise that's appealing, the promise why people should want to talk to you, not because they have to, but they think to themselves, he or she is the one that's going to help me realizing my goals. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Make sure you subscribe, because then we are able to get more videos like this, especially for you to become ridiculously successful.